In this for all intents and purposes associate we will voice our really own and showcases viewpoint on Ankr future while talking about Ankr cost figure for 2022. Most definitely if nobody truly minds one way or the other specifically remember that you ought to for all intents and purposes contemplate this and one definitely more gauge while considering various components since anticipating anything mostly is an unpalatable undertaking. Additionally foreseeing the conceivable fate of a clever essentially unusual cash-related resource like Ankr at this point, might we at some point head into it, before we hop huge into the Ankr regard, mostly guess and answer requests, assuming Ankr for all intents and purposes, is a shrewd experience or not for what reason will Ankr literally succeed or mostly fail spectacularly, or for what reason will Ankr regard rise or drop. We should rapidly specifically toss a gander at what definitely is Ankr and its to-date history. The entire crypto world actually is on an edge of a very clear generally bear market. Bitcoin really has very balanced half from its flawless high in the midst of the more noteworthy market actually drops affected by raging expansion. And us literally managed rate increments, money-related supporters actually are selling hazardous resources and moving into generally extra pretty steady business regions. Crypto is as of now seen as an unbelievably dangerous play. And consequently, the close out our algo still sees us really green in 2022. Particularly in the for all intents and purposes second piece of the year. This actually is reflected in our 2022 gauges right now. Bitcoin necessities to find a particularly nearby base before we can move the substitute way and actually adjust the course right when Bitcoin gets comfortable. The new cost range altcoins will literally begin to do similarly. We for the most part have seen this generally current situation commonly in the wiped out and later history. Our cost suspicion model particularly is negative for the going with 90 days, with a sprinkle of the buyer market at the divert of the quarters from Q1 to Q2. We expect whales and pretty much more unmistakable players in the market to crease up filling their sacks throughout that time, which will cause a run of the mill. And particularly surprising crypto spike. Captain Altcoin Pack made a cost supposition model with a complicated technique for overseeing crypto that thinks about both fairly specific assessment and huge evaluation of each. Really try rudiments that we review really are bundle tokenomics, use case area endeavors, liquidity and trade transparency, openness and hypothetical really potential and several other restrictive variables made in our crypto lab. Ankr pretty worth presumption 2025. Our suspicion model sees Ankr coming to 0.0535 out of 2025. What will Ankr kind of be? Very worth in 5 years. The cost of Ankr in 5 years could lie around 0.0481. As per Captain Altcoin's supposition model. Ankr particularly worth supposition 2030-2040. What Ankr will be sort of worth in 2030. Our choosing model sees Ankr coming to 0.1337 out of 2030. What Ankr will particularly be kind of worth in 2040. Our expecting model sees Ankr coming to 0.2675 out of 2040. Will Ankr displace overpower Bitcoin? No, Ankr won't dislodge or kind of overwhelm BTC. Could Ankr whenever eventually, generally arrive at 10? No. Our presumption model sees no for all intents and purposes. Likely entryways for Ankr to kind of arrive at 10 in the really shorter midterm period. Definitely is Ankr worth purchasing. We generally are partners of reasonably unsafe money. The leaders for the most part put by a fairly wide margin the majority of basically your crypto portfolio in BTC. Half 35 in a holder of colossal cap coins and the rest in little tasks with enormous expected gains. Subsequently in this generally specific situation, Ankr merits purchasing. Mostly is Ankr a generally quick undertaking. Ankr really is similar to any extra electronic financial principles. A risky undertaking. It kind of has definitely higher likelihood of going up than down, considering the very staggering use case, particularly organized tokenomics dynamic area, a pretty strong basically social occasion behind it. What fairly aggregate will Ankr be generally worth? For the passing future it could arrive at 0.0159 in the end 8 to 10 years, it could leap to 0.1337 or generally higher. For what reason will Ankr kind of succeed, and for all intents and purposes, get more exorbitant? Ankr for all intents and purposes has a pleasant use case, especially organized tokenomics sort of dynamic area, a kind of strong get-together behind it. These essentially are a basically central for progress, and to that end our presumption model sees Ankr ascending to 0.1337 out of 2030. For what reason will Ankr particularly come up very short and drop in cost? Crypto projects fizzle considering different components. Apparently the most comprehensively seen ones essentially are bundle, denounces any kind of influence, and leaves the undertaking controllers report it unlawful, and press trades to delist it, non-attendance of media, basically thought more feasible contenders non-appearance of particularly organized displaying procedure, losing neighborhood plausible deficiency in the show, neglecting to actually accomplish expected sort of the least development action on the show, neglecting to for all intents and purposes draw in new organizers to literally foster their foundation. Could Ankr whenever arrive at 1? Without a doubt it is conceivable that Ankr can arrive at 1 at any rate in the detached future after 2030. How actually high will Ankr specifically go? Our gauging model sees Ankr regard detonating and coming to 0.2675 in a far-off future. What for all intents and purposes is the passing suspicion for Ankr will definitely arrive at 0.0159 in the going with 90 days, which definitely is a 424 change over the fairly constant cost, which floats around 0.0276. Could Ankr whenever basically make you a magnate? Certainly assuming that you purchase gigantic enough proportion of it. Definitely try not to hope to basically contribute 100, and particularly become an Ankr really big shot anyway. 100x actually worth effects specifically are a typical side in crypto, so a 10k premium in Ankr could kind of make you a mogul. Ankr worth gauge today. What will be the cost of Ankr tomorrow? Ankr will drift around 0.0286 tomorrow. Actually chill is paid all due respects to the world, its relationship with the middle hoster Ankr, the new pursuit will make a blockchain foundation named Chill is tight 20 to kind of bring a specific space for the games and redirection district to consume in the crypto space. Ankr, the WEB3 framework will change into a kind of key piece of this really joint endeavor and mostly give its middle associations to the actually evolved blockchain. Chill is by and by a actually chief name in the games and redirection locale, with a line of prominent things like the Socioscom application and the fan tokens for its following stage. The regular structure will be contacted, actually oblige the quickly making considerations examinations and models. The Chill is chain will be clearing, with the definitely possible consequence of eagerly inviting new improvements, like NFTs, and fan tokens from different games, and diversion brands across the world. Ankr particularly is the for all intents and purposes, main stage 2 for all intents and purposes, coordinate focus plan checking and DeFi to work on it too. Essentially construct and benefit Ankr chips away at it, and for all intents and purposes open for